Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird coming to you live from Largo, Florida. Beautiful, beautiful day here. I must say, the Florida weather is it's pretty awesome. It's pretty consistent, which is great. So every once in a while, you get the odd hurricane or something, but hey, we deal with that. The pluses definitely outweigh the minuses. So we were originally going to talk about the role of chronic inflammation in disease today, but we moved that to Tuesday. Dr. Stillman has an appointment, so you're stuck with me today. And we're going to talk about why discomfort is the key to your success, but we're not going to talk about it in the typical way, right? We had our testosterone webinar yesterday, which is part of our course. We covered HRT, peptides, our thoughts on that, who should take it, who shouldn't, lifestyle stuff, all the things. Our next one next week is going to be in our weight loss course, which is the final chapter. We'll be tying everything together into a summary. So you can get on that webinar by being on our email list. It's kind of a reward for you being on our list. So just go over to stillmanwellness.com, put your information in the pop-up in the 5 biggest mistakes. Get on our email list, and every Wednesday night, we'll send it out on Monday as well, but every Monday and Wednesday, you'll get a link to get into the StreamYard here. We won't be streaming it live. So the only way you'll be able to get on the webinar is by being on the email list, and then you can watch the replay and all that good stuff. So today, Fridays, we see people in person, which is great because I really miss coaching people in person. I'm an in-person coach. That's what I do. That's what I love to do. I don't mind working with people virtually, but I just don't get the same satisfaction, fulfillment out of it as I do working with people in person. So it's great to see people on Fridays. You can get to work with them a little bit and take a look at them and help simplify things for them. And I really enjoy that. And that's why I'm really looking forward to getting down to Nicaragua and getting my gym going down there so I can work with some people in person, even if it's just for fun. So if you want to check out our retreat in Nicaragua or the company, the property that we're partnering with to do this, you can go to my link tree or Dr. Stillman's link tree in the description, and there'll be some guides. In my link tree, there's a guide to Nicaragua, a guide to ECI development, and then information about our retreat, which is coming up rather quickly. I mean, it's already September, October, November, December, January, we're there. So it's amazing. We started talking about this past April because we know a lot of people have reservations about Nicaragua. We actually have we'll have the wife of the owner, CEO of ECI Development, who raised her entire family in Nicaragua, is going to come on the show next week to talk about her experience living in Nicaragua and raising her children there, to kind of dismay some of the bad misconceptions about Nicaragua. And it's gotten a lot of bad press, and that's one of the reasons why it's a lot more reasonable compared to places like Costa Rica, is because it has this kind of bad reputation that is really unwarranted at this point. So we're going to have her on sometime next week to talk about that. So if you're interested in that, be on the lookout for that. Maybe Monday we'll see how the schedule works. We'll see. Why discomfort is the key to your success. Now, most people will say, well, you've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to do hard exercise. And that's definitely true. But a lot of the people, including myself, this is, one from my own firsthand experience. A lot of the activities that I was doing or still struggling with, and I'm still working on this. The relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship in your life. Because if you don't have good self-worth, if you don't have self-value, if you have negative self-talk, if you've got a sense of not having value, and you have all these things in your mind from your past, and people are just gonna be like, well, get over it, and there's some sense to that, right? But if you've got previous trauma, if you're spinning around in your head, a lot of people don't want to take the time to sit quietly and live in their own discomfort and deal with it. They'd rather eat cookies. They'd rather have a piece of cake to make them feel better, a couple glasses of wine, which is fine from time to time, but this becomes a strategy. And some people like myself, instead of dealing with the root causes using hard exercise, using intense exercise, using your job to basically distract you from having to deal with your own reality in your head. And this is pretty common. It's very, very common. It's become very easy to medicate yourself with videos or pornography or whatever else instead of dealing with the reality in your head. You get that easy dopamine, and it becomes an addiction that you just can't stop, right? And most people are using this strategy in order to function. And then that leads to, over consuming certain foods or over consuming alcohol or, not doing anything at all or doing too much, so we have this balance of like, how are you medicating yourself? Right. And there's obviously better choices. A lot of people that have exercise addiction, and I've helped a lot of people with exercise addiction, mainly because I was one of those people that was using exercise to manage a lot of the anger issues I had, which is better than going to jail. But over time, the best part to do with that is to actually deal with the garbage in your closet so you don't have that hatred that you have to take out in exercise. And then there's the whole thing where you have to learn how to become motivated, because when I was training really hard, and I still train hard, but not like I was before, it took me, when I finally dealt with some of the things I needed to deal with, it took me a good 6 months to a year to learn how to train, because I actually enjoyed it, as opposed to like almost like self-hatred. I used anger and hatred so much, and it's kind of like Star Wars. Like, it's very powerful, but it has a high cost to your physiology when you're running on anger all the time. So most people will take the easy way out. And if they feel bad, they're struggling, they feel like garbage, they just medicate with food, with cake, cookies, whatever, overeating, those sort of things. And before you know it, they're overweight. And then they go and they try and start exercising, but they don't actually deal with the root cause of why they're overeating, or why they're not sleeping, because they just don't want to be silent. Right. And so getting uncomfortable and being able to sit with yourself and be uncomfortable and deal with a lot of these things that you need to deal with, and have a good relationship with yourself and valuing yourself and being able to treat yourself well is the key to long-term success. So, Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers of all time, and he was trauma driven. Now, he made millions of dollars. He also lost millions of dollars. He's a very unique person. I love listening to him talk, because he's been on both sides of the coin. He's been on the extreme savage side, and now he's a much different person, but he's learned how to turn that on and turn that off. He still trains. For a while there, he was afraid of training because he didn't want to wake that side of him. He talks about that a lot with Joe Rogan, how he doesn't want to let that guy out. And then his wife called him overweight or something, and he was like, "Oh, dude, I got to start training again." So he started training again. So now he's able to balance training and having a good relationship with himself and keeping his ego in check. I really love watching him talk about this stuff, because he's lived it. He's struggled with it. He's been in prison. He's got a very wide array of experiences. And, he grew up in a terrible environment, and he used fighting to get him out of that. Right. And a lot of the anger and the hatred from that situation is what drove him to be one of the best in the world. So a lot of this stuff's really complicated. And, but you have to be able to live with yourself, and you have to be able to treat yourself well. And most people just don't like themselves at all. And that's why they abuse themselves. It's almost like a cutting relationship where you're cutting yourself, because you don't like yourself. And so one of the most, and the reason I'm talking about this stuff is because I've dealt with and are dealing with this now. I'm doing some EMDR therapy now, and I'm having to go in and work on some really, really deep things and some conditioning that I have to overcome to learn how to set boundaries and treat myself better. One of the things I'm really good at is helping others, but I'm not so good at helping myself. So that's something that's very hard for me. I sit down every morning and I write out all the negative thoughts that I have, and I read them to myself over and over, and then I rip them up, and then I reaffirm, and I basically get all that crap out of my head, and I express it, instead of a lot of people will bury it. They'll just like, I'm just going to suck it up. I'm going to work extra hard to overcome these thoughts and these feelings that I'm having. And there's nothing wrong with having feelings. acting on feelings without logically thinking it through. That's something that gets you in trouble. But expressing this stuff, like this is stuff I would never express. I would always just bury it deeper. And I would always just like train harder or work harder or, who am I going to impress? Like I need to prove to somebody else that I'm valuable so they can affirm my value instead of knowing that I am valuable with who I am by myself. So you fall into this trap of where you're trying to prove to others and you're trying to help others in order to get something in return. And that just doesn't end well. Like when you do things for others, in the past, when I was younger in my 20s and stuff, I used to like keep score. I'd do all these nice things for people and then I'd get pissed when they didn't reciprocate. Now I do nice things because I want to, and because I've done nice things to myself and I'm not seeking that approval or that it happened a lot when I was a young coach, when people wouldn't, in my early 20s, when people wouldn't comply or listen to what I had to say, I would take it personally. And now I realize that a lot of times people are just not ready, and it might not be the right time for them. And it has nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with my value as a person or as a coach. It might be the place they're at. So a lot of this stuff that people are trying to out exercise or they're trying to get on a really strict diet, they're just caught in a loop of medicating the actual root cause of the problem, which is in their own head and the relationship with themselves with external things. Right. And you'll hear people all the time, I'll be happy when I lose 10 pounds. And they lose 10 pounds and then there's something else they don't like. Right. So you've got to have that balance between like, why exactly am I doing this? What's the motivation behind this? Is it to fill a void in myself? That gets into a relationship with God, spirituality. Are you chasing things of this world and you don't have a good relationship with God or a higher power or a relationship with yourself? So these are all really complicated things that people that are extremely simplistic when it comes down to it. Can you sit in silence and actually deal with the thoughts in your head? And most people can't, especially in this modern world, because the modern world has been created in a way that keeps you from sitting in silence. Because my belief is that the powers that be, the people that are designing this stuff, know that when you sit in silence and you have wisdom and discernment and you deal with all this crap in your closet, the chances of you becoming a complacent, compliant consumer go down dramatically. So the more, and you do these sales courses and stuff, and I always would laugh. You go to these sales courses and like, you gotta get that person's pain point and you got to get them emotional in order to get them to buy things. And I was like, yeah, but they're not going to be a great long-term customer. So I never really bought into that. I just bought into providing a good service and then helping people achieve their goals. And if I was a good fit for them, great. And if not, that's fine too. And that ended up working really well for me. I never really had to do much cheesy marketing type stuff. But if you live in a consumer-based economy like the one today, getting people to scroll endlessly and then have an ad that appeals to their emotions, that's a way to make a lot of quick, easy sales. So that's basically how the system is set up. And so you have to deliberately make choices to become more mindful, to become more present, put a lot of these things away. I put my phone away at 8:30 and get off the damn thing. When I fail to do that and I'm scrolling mindlessly instead of me sitting quietly and journaling and things that I need to do before I go to bed to wind down, I don't sleep as well. So, being disciplined on that front, but, working on the relationship with yourself is something you don't really hear a lot of people talking about because it's uncomfortable. It's painful. And a lot of people will do really uncomfortable things, especially with exercise, to not have to deal with the demons they have carrying around inside themselves. Right. They'll avoid that. And a lot of people get great pleasure from torturing themselves, from training really hard. It's a great endorphin rush until it doesn't work anymore, until that endorphin rush goes away and you don't get fulfillment from that anymore, or your body can't handle it anymore, which was the case I fell into. So there's just a few thoughts for you today about maybe taking a different look at things instead of looking at like, okay, I've got to do ice baths, I've got to do sauna, and all these things are great to make myself uncomfortable. But really the thing you need to do is look within yourself and the relationship you have with yourself and deal with that discomfort before you start chasing hard exercise and all these other things to fill a void that's within yourself that you're never going to be able to fill. Because you can't, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, all these external things are not going to do anything for you. No matter how successful you are, how much money you've got, how many cars you have, how ripped you are, you're always going to have a void if you don't have fulfillment, if you don't have a good relationship spiritually with yourself, mentally, emotionally with yourself. You're never going to be able to fill that void through external things. If you look at history, most of the people, like Solomon in the Bible talks about vanity, vanity, vanity. He had every woman his eyes laid sight upon. He was one of the most richest men in the world, and he said it's all for nothing, right? So just wanted to make you guys think a little differently about things and about why you might be stuck or struggling, and why you might not be able to treat yourself well and do the 5 fundamental things. Like, why can't you walk outside 3 times a day, for 10 minutes? Why can't you eat a protein at every meal? Why can't you drink high quality water? Why can't you get the lights off at night? Why can't you treat yourself well? And then it becomes easy. Once you start dealing with a lot of these things, it's like, why am I doing this? And is it a positive or a negative? Am I doing it because I really want to do it? Or am I doing it for someone else? Or am I doing it to make myself feel better about myself? And you can do that about food too. Like, am I eating this to nourish myself? Am I eating this because I really had a really hard day and I had a terrible day and I'm going to eat 4 brownies to make me feel better and have a glass of wine? Which I will say from time to time, there's nothing wrong with that. But that becomes your go-to strategy where you're coming home every night, you're eating a bag of chips and you're having, a glass of wine every night, and you do that for months and months and years, you're going to be, getting yourself into a lot of trouble. Christy says, love EMDR. I do too. It's probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I came home the other day from a session and I literally slept. Like, that was the morning I missed the live in the morning. The first time I've missed a live. I literally slept till 5 minutes before the live, because I usually get up right around 6. And I went to bed almost 2 hours after I was done with the EMDR. I was so exhausted that I came home and went to bed, and I didn't wake up till almost 10, like 5 to 9. That's the day Dr. Stillman beat me on here, which usually doesn't ever happen. So thank you for that. Amy, thank you so much for the feedback. I always try and give people, I want to make people think. And because I've learned the hard way. I've had many challenges and setbacks, and certainly there's people that are a lot worse situations than I've been in. But I always try and take a strategic approach to things instead of just like bearing down and working harder. A lot of times when you're stuck in quicksand, the worst thing you can do is struggle, because you sink faster, deeper. So I always try and help people look at things from maybe a different perspective, because most of the people that come to us, they've either had a tragedy in their life and they've spun out of control and we have to get them back on pace, or they've just let modern life consume them and they've just gotten away from the fundamental habits and they're in a bad place, or they've over-exercised, or they've driven themselves super hard and their body has finally just given up. So a lot of this is changing their perspective and understanding that a lot of the things that they need to put their effort into are different than the things they perceive. Like Joel Jameson had a great post. He's like, most people put their effort into the things that they don't really need to put effort into. So it's about getting people to change their perspective on effort. And maybe there's other things than the working out component that's important, but maybe you're putting so much effort into that, you're neglecting your own self-care, your own mental health, right? And there are people that will use exercise for their mental health, and that can be a great strategy. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that there's a time comes when that doesn't work anymore. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks for the like or the love, the little heart there. I appreciate that. if you go over to, it's interesting. I have all of our interviews that we do with Dr. Stillman, everything that gets uploaded live, everything that gets uploaded on my YouTube channel actually gets backed up to Rumble and Odyssey as well. So if you go to Rumble and you type in Jim Laird 44, I think it was, that's one of my old football numbers, and also the number of my favorite football player of all time, which was Tom Rathman, who played for the San Francisco 49ers. He's a great blocking fullback. I tried to emulate Tom Rathman and how I played football, how I wrestled, just sheer grit, determination, and willing to do the things that other people didn't want to do. When I played football, I loved doing the dirty work, the blocking, the stuff that no one else wanted to do is the stuff I like to do. So 44, Jim Laird was already taken on Rumble, so I just threw the 44 in there just because it was easy. But if you go over to Rumble, you can follow me on there just in case, for whatever reason, they decide to, they just announced the other day that anyone that doesn't adhere to the exact CDC guidelines on health is going to be basically suppressed and censored. So chances are eventually this YouTube channel probably won't be here. So if you want to go over to Rumble and follow on there, just in case this disappears, that would be probably wise, or on Odyssey as well. So, and I know Dr. Stillman is we're going to get him set up so that his YouTube channel transfers over to Rumble, so that we have a backup, so that if they decide to, take us out. If you just Google Rumble, Amy, what is Rumble? Rumble is a decentralized freedom kind of, it's like YouTube, but with free, you're allowed to say pretty much what you want, as opposed to having people censor you and fact check you, so to speak. So you just type in Rumble, it'll pull up on there. It's like YouTube, but it's decentralized, and so is Odyssey. There's another one called BitChute. That's I'm not on BitChute, but BitChute is another one where a lot of people that got kicked off during the beer bug all went to, because they got kicked off YouTube. They went over there. The most infamous or famous person that has done that was Andrew Tate. When he got banned off of everywhere, he went to Rumble and literally brought that platform to the forefront. But a lot of the MDs and stuff that got banned are on Rumble. A lot of people will do a teaser on YouTube and then they'll go over to Rumble because they can, speak their mind on Rumble. They don't have to worry about having their views suppressed or censored over there. So a lot of people will start off. I think that's what Allison Morrow, that has Dr. Stillman's done a few interviews with. She used to be a journalist and then decided she was done with that and started her own thing. She actually lives here in Florida, but she starts on YouTube, and then when they start getting too spicy for YouTube, they go over to Rumble. So that might be something we do in the future. We'll see. But Dr. Stillman has his Substack for that for now. And that being said, on Monday he's doing 2 Monday master classes. He's going to redo the first responder one because he got cut off because our internet here is sketchy. It's funny, we're hardwired and we have internet problems. So, and I've talked to another friend of mine here in Tampa who's has to use internet as part of his business, and he talked to a number of people, and he's like, it's really, very, really unstable in this area for whatever reason, probably because there's so many people using it. But that froze on him, so he's going to redo that, and then he's doing a second one on, I think it's like he's going to comment on, the supplements everyone should take. He's going to give his spin on that. It's like a popular topic. So he's doing those back to back, which is really cool. And then of course, if you're on his Substack and you're a premium member, he does his weekly Q&A every week, which is a great value for like $20 a month. So if you're not on that, you can get on that. So it's great. We try and have multiple price points so we can help different people. We have, on the front side of it, we have, he have his Substack for $20. You get a coaching, essentially a Q&A every week. And then you get his regular emails, and he updates regular content. And then we've got our Fundamentals of Wellness coaching program, which we're going to be adding more coaching calls. You get a couple coaching calls a month with both of us. I've actually got my strength and conditioning Fundamentals of Wellness call tomorrow, where I'll get on with a Q&A and help people, adjust their workouts, answer specific exercise questions or lifestyle questions. But Dr. Stillman and I do one together, and then I do one by myself, which is more exercise, strength training related. Particularly, our fitness industry doesn't do a very good job of bringing people that are beginners into strength and conditioning. So that's something I really pride myself on, is getting people doing habits and gradually increasing intensity, and then making sure we give exercises that are going to help people move better, as opposed to just being big, strong, immovable objects that can't move well. That's not really, because most of the strength and conditioning, honestly, is influenced by bodybuilding and powerlifting, where they really don't care how well you move. It's just either a matter of how much you can lift or what you look like. So we need to have a balance of both, obviously. So that I'm doing that tomorrow on Saturday. And obviously, if you're listening to this, on our podcast, we obviously do these live. So if you hear about some of these dates and you're listening to this 3 months down the road, then it is what it is, right? We actually had somebody complain about that, and I was like, we're not going to go in and change, adjust all the dates and the times. It's just, it is what it is. We just listen to the information, enjoy it, and good times. But that, and then the Monday master classes on Monday, and then next Thursday we're going to be doing the weight loss summary, and just get on our email list for that. If you have any questions for us, you can always email us, ask questions. We'll get to them the best we can. But the best way to answer questions is to get into one of our coaching programs, where we can have interaction with you, help you stay consistent, because that's really what it's all about, is accountability, and maybe telling you some things that you don't want to hear, which happens quite a lot. So you definitely need people in your life that are going to tell you the truth and not tell you just what you want to hear, because a lot of times what you want to hear is not what it takes for you to get better. So that being said, make sure you get outside today, especially in the fall. Really enjoy this fall weather. If you live in a northern climate, you live up in near Edmonton, where I used to live, or Toronto in Canada, if you live in the North Dakota, if you live in Montana, you might want to look into getting yourself a sauna. So get yourself ready for the winter so that you can thrive. Have yourself a great day. And if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, where it gets really cold, or in the northern latitudes, get comfortable going cross-country skiing and snowshoeing and all those things. The one thing I do love about northern latitudes, especially when I lived in Colorado and even in Edmonton, it was bright and sunny, and you could go ice fishing, and you could go snowshoeing, you could go snowmobiling. Kentucky, not so much. It was like a giant, dark, wet, muddy mess that you really couldn't do anything but go mudding in. And once you go mudding in a truck through 2 or 3 times, you're pretty much, my brother is in Fargo, actually. One time I went to, for his wedding in October of, I can't remember how many years ago. It's been a long time. But I was living in Kentucky, and I grew up in Edmonton. So I've seen, 40, 50, 60 below 0 Celsius with wind. We never had really strong winds at 40 below, but when you start getting minus 40 Celsius, which is minus 40 Fahrenheit with a wind, it's ridiculously wicked. I remember getting off the plane in October in Fargo, and it was like right around freezing. So it was around 0 for Celsius people and around 32 for Fahrenheit people. And it was like a 40, 50 mile an hour wind. And I got off the plane, and it, of course, at the time in Fargo, it was, you get off the plane, you walk down the ladder, and you can get on the runway. There was no fancy little ramp to get on. I thought, I got off the plane, and I was like, this was just absolutely horrible. I was just like, this wind with this cold, I almost turned around and got back on the plane. But it was good. We had the wedding. I had fun, and I left. But I've ridden motorcycles through South Dakota and North Dakota in the summertime through the Badlands. I really enjoyed that. But that was I've been in really cold. But when it's really cold with a high wind, like it's just not something I like to experience very often. So thank you very much for the feedback, everyone. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I am going to sign off now before I go off on another rant. Have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend.